Kia ora te whānau. I'm super humbled to be here, but also very mindful I'm the guy that gets to speak before we all get to go to Kai. So with that in mind, I've got about 10 minutes, but before we do that, does anyone need to get up and have a bit of a stretch to get things moving? Yeah? You too? All good? Get some blood pumping? All right, too much. Okay, cool, let's do it. So yes, ko aio, ko JT mo toku ingoa, huria hau ngō ngā te apa me ngā te tūwhare toa. Going through this real quick, so a lot of my background has been working with rangatahi for about the last 15 years between councils and community centres. Like I didn't get you guys to do like an icebreaker jump around thing as I would with the young people, but a lot of branching from that has been a lot of brown working with the workforce development between government and non-for-profits. A lot of the education system, mostly around the tertiary space, but right down from primary up to secondary, and a lot of my passion is in the alternative education space as well. And here's the stuff tutuing in the community, so working with different trusts, a lot around the Bay of Plenty region, but really invested and care a lot about community in general. And eventually, like pretty new to the game, but I was introduced to the tech space about three and a half years ago now, and I credit that a lot to this individual here, Chris McClymans, also known as Hippie Hacker for anyone who may be familiar. His organisation, Inclusive Innovation and Instant Infrastructure. He was the first man to introduce me to the concept of open source, and I had never heard of it before in my life, but I was really inspired by this idea of tech serving people versus us being subject to some of the limitations around proprietary software and the like. And the democratization of access to technology, and this idea that community was intrinsically part of that, as opposed to just being a purely industry-led concept of what it looks like to take part in the technology sector, and how overall that could benefit the world through innovation and collaboration, and even concepts like public money, public code, and the like. And what was something that really powerful that sort of drew me into it as well is that he had an almost ethereal view of technology in the world, and he'd been living here in Aotearoa for about 10 years and spent a lot of his time with our people, and almost saw tech as having its own Māori or life force, or a bit of wairua, as you'd say. And I didn't quite understand that at the time, but something really clicked and resonated with me that there was something more to technology than just code and facts and figures and whatever else, because I said not from a tech background myself, but he went from there and then introduced me to what they call the fire hose of information. So that's how he broke down some of the work they've been doing with CNC around conformance programs, the likes of Kubernetes and data orchestration management, and this heart attack I saw with the CNCF landscape when I first, I think we were 170 odd projects, I think it's about 200 plus now, in the technical advisory group, so the contributor growth tag, which has been huge support to me, but some of their mahi around LFX mentorships, and eventually being invited to have a crack at creating what might be a Māori mentorship program to help support contributor growth for our people here. Breathe. So it was a whole new game to me, as you could expect, and so I thought, man, where do we go? So a lot into trying to understand what it was that we're even talking to her about. So before we could get into anything around pods or clusters or containerization or broad gateway protocols and all the rest, we had to break it down to, it's what Pokemon Go runs on. Trying to talk to our young people or whatever, like what is that sort of, realm of understanding we can talk to. So a lot of that around, training and workshops and meetups, and shout out to Matua Jason, who's some of our industry connections, who also hosted some of our wahine and some of our tauira over that time as well. Just to be able to understand, who are the end users, who are the contributors, who are the people that utilise or contribute to or help to shape what this whole new world is and might look like for our young people who might consider pathways in this space. And a lot of resource development, a lot of sort of picking things apart, putting them together. I had a crack at KCNA too, that didn't go too flash, but hey, it's all good learning too, right? And I was also very privileged to be able to see what that looked like from a global scale as well. So I was invited to have a couple of speaking slots at KubeCon and the like. and which was amazing. It was, working on things like, kids day events and peer mentoring, and just being in this crazy volume of people who, like me, had been to these places for their first time, but also made me really conscious in terms of what are the types of environments, if we're looking at bringing our people into these spaces, can they expect to experience. And talking to a lot of others who had been there for the first time, those from other underrepresented groups, who felt like this whole space was overwhelming and really ambiguous, and we talk about these concepts of chopping wood and carrying water, but in terms of the clarity around what it actually takes to become a contributor in this sort of space, for the most part, was really lacking. And so, we're looking at 30-odd thousand people over that time who might have been their first sort of foray into this sort of space. I knew it was going to be really hard to try and create something that might be meaningful for our people to be able to show up and participate, and if I could take part in building that waka to help get us there in the first place. And it came back to, how do we sort of set that whare well enough to be able to welcome our manuhiri, to help our people to feel like they have a sense of belonging while they're in that environment. So I'd come back to the bones of things, and some of our mahi with Toi Karawa, jumped a bit. We're a Māori economic development agency based in Tauranga Moana. As I said, working across the rohe of Bay of Plenty, and a lot of our mahi extends across 4 main po, essentially around working with our people, our businesses, our land, and building platforms of excellence. And one of those is our Toiki Tour Māori internship program that we've been running for the last 5 years, working across about 10 industries, and we've placed over 60 of our tauira in that sort of space. And a lot about how we have done that has been coming back to the foundation of our values and our principles around te whare tapa whao, te whare tapa rima. I won't jump into that too much now, but that's been really integral in terms of creating spaces around wānanga, cultural safety and pastoral care, and the values that underpin them to support our people to success in these new spaces. And as a progression from that, we've been working since on creating like a tech stream cohort, if you will, that run parallel with our internship program. Focused on creating small-scale projects, so whether that's be kicking off things around Hugo websites or introductions to data servers and be able to scale from there, being supported and led by industry, and integrating those in our local communities, in our marae, alongside our iwi, with our schools, kura, library, or what have you. And with big emphasis on the transferable skills that can serve industry, but also breaking those down further, as has been mentioned a couple of times today, more than just the technical aptitudes that it needed, being super clear around what does soft skills look like, not just broad ideas around communication and collaboration, but what does it look like if we could break that down for our young people to be able to see in practice, and anyone else who might benefit from that path as they progress too. Heavily supported by our partners, Stand Tall, which I'm also representing, kia ora Pascal, team in the building as well, and being able to create that foundation to be able to support pathways, whether it be into CNCF projects and the like, or our people in general. But it also came back to knowing our why, and I realised that a lot of my early mahi had been around almost being a solution, looking for a problem. And it's one thing to have this really fascinating technology such as Kubernetes and self-healing and self-replication, all these sorts of things. But what is the problem that we're trying to solve, and how can it fit into the current climate of where we're at the moment? And for Māori, when a lot of that is centered around digital inequity, skills divides and systemic barriers which inhibit us from being able to progress into those sorts of areas. It's being mindful of that as we progress. What are the sorts of projects or mahi that is most needed by our people to be consistent with that idea of tech serving us? And the topic of Māori data sovereignty has become more and more relevant in recent years, and it was a recognition that through kotahitanga and working widely across our communities and our wider sector, as some sort of bridge into the global opportunities, but also channeling those in-demand skills to be able to serve that might be the way forward to achieve something that benefits not just Māori, but for us as a nation as well. And in recognition of that, I just want to shout out to 2 of our rangatira in the space who have since passed, Dr. Te Huirangi Waikiripuru and Dr. Toby Curtis, I'll let you read that, but essentially saw Māori as having much more of an intrinsic relationship with technology than what is typically described. And I realised that looking at the big picture of that was a, you know, in some ways a lot of alignment with what Hippie was first talking about when we first met. And as you can see, the journey thus far has been a lot of push and pull, and to merge these elements meaningfully, we have to be really clear and strong about the values that are driving our willingness to commit. Get it? It's a long day, we can run with this. And so looking forward to flip things back, looking at tech and the data, indigenous data frameworks and the funding to support the scale, the marae community-based hubs and training, paid work-based learning and cultural values underpinning the education systems to help get us there, targeted pastoral care to address the attrition rates and a lot of the retention issues that we're having around contributor growth over long term, I believe will unlock the potential of our young people and communities at large to be able to bridge these worlds, to be creators, not consumers, to be builders and not tenants of these spaces, and to be self-determined and not directed by what the future looks like for us. And also, of course, want to give out a small shout out to some of those who have been really integral in helping us to build the work thus far and moving forward. So that's it from me. Te tiro, whakamuri, kōkiri, whakamua. We need to look backwards to move forwards. Awesome. Kia ora koutou.